Hi, Soumyadeep. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Avish. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. All right. So, to get started, can you share a little bit about your current role and your profile?
Sure, Avish. So currently, I'm working in Sterlite Power, which is one of the leading private transmission companies, power transmission companies in India, and which also has a great footprint in Brazil as well. So here, what I'm trying to do is I'm looking into the digital initiatives, the critical digital initiatives of the company, which are very important for both the top line and the bottom line as well. So I'm basically making sure that all these digital initiatives happen as per the plan, as per the scope, and at the end of the day, it basically improves the way of working. Maybe helps in giving a digital intervention to maybe mundane tasks, and to basically improve the way of working for people, and to reduce the time doing mundane activities, and they can use the same time in doing some better activities which help the company. So on a high level, this is what I do. There are a few projects which uh, have handled, and basically which has helped in saving a lot of time and money for the company. So on a high level, this is what I'm doing.
All right. So, these projects are mostly internal projects, or do you have external consultants coming in as well?
Yes. So I like to speak about the robotic process automation project, which I did on my first year. So in the year of 2019, this is something which we did. So that time I was in finance. I was in finance department. So what we saw was because of the kind of industry we are in. So we are a very capex intensive industry. So wherein we are developers of big construction projects, especially power transmission lines. So what happens is there are a lot of invoices which are generated for the work done by the EPCs. EPCs are basically the partners who help us in carrying out the construction of the project. So we found out that there were lot number of invoices, and there were 2, 3 folks in the department who actually just through from the for the entire duration of the day they just used to process the invoices and just do the payments. So therein we got to know that firstly the streamlining of the process was important, and also if this task could be basically done by a bot and not the person by, and he is becoming idle for the entire day doing that. So that is the main use case for which we bought the RPA process, RPA project. For that, we actually worked along with Automation Anywhere. So they were external company and one of the leaders in the RPA ecosystem around the world. So we worked along with them for a year. And first, we started with finance. So invoice processing was one of the major process which we picked up. And then based on the success, it actually percolated down to other functions as well, like quality, health, and safety in the company as well as in HR. So all in all, maybe we did around 17 processes, and it actually helped in boosting the efficiency of these processes, and reduce the turnaround time for a lot of processes for the people involved. So this is something which we did externally. Currently, in my role in which I'm working in business acquisition. So in that, it things are happening internally, because currently we have a lot more folks who are well endowed with the technical skills. So initially, when I came in, we used to do mostly from a third party, but right now we have the skills within the company to actually do a lot of projects in house. So currently, what the I'm dealing with the internal stakeholders. So in building an app for the surveyors who actually go out on field and capture a lot of inputs, photos, and all. So we are building an app. There is an in-house tool which we have, so which actually gives us a little bit of competitive edge during the bidding process. So this is what I'm trying to do. So basically, it is a mix of both. So depending on the scenario, it's either external or maybe even internal.
All right. So, I speak to a lot of CXOs across multiple industries. And while everybody is excited about RPA, I get a lot of mixed feelings because there are many projects that fail or probably do not get the result that we expected, or maybe the ROI is not what we initially expected it to be. Now, my take on it has been that a lot of organizations are too quick to jump into RPA, thinking that it is a band-aid and we apply it and all our problems are suddenly overnight solved. And the mistake that they're making is the fact that internally the processes are still not strong. There are issues with the way people communicate with each other. The data is in silos. Now, while RPA might give you a quick fix, I strongly believe, because I have also started working in the area of workflow automation a little bit, I've realized that if you just put a band-aid on top of it, without even bothering to understand what is the root cause of the problem, this can lead to issues going forward. And that's why the response to RPA, I think everybody agrees it's going to be a huge industry going forward. But then so far the response has been a little tepid. It's not as big a breakthrough as we expected it. What is your take on that?
Yeah. So Havish, you're absolutely right. So what happens is they just we generally have a very high level understanding of it, that it will basically magically optimize all your processes and it will automate everything, right? But that's not how it works. The first thing is that you should be smart enough to identify the processes which need automation. So for that you have basically 3 or 4 criteria which you should judge the process on. So number one being that the process should be streamlined. That is something which is going on. The person is used to it. You can say that there should be around 80 to 90% of everything is fixed. So the person knows at the back of his mind, like he should just blink at a blink of an eye, should be able to say that these are the steps without any problem. So those steps are something, and it becomes kind of a rule-based process through which it goes on, and then it becomes very easy for the bot for you to train the bot that okay, so this is the process one. So based on that, this is the trigger which because of which the step 2 comes up. So what happens generally in the organizations, that streamlining is not there. So even while we were actually starting with this RPA journey on the process which I just spoke about, the invoice processing, there were a lot of things which we actually found out was not being done while actually the process was being done manually. So during this brainstorming sessions, we actually managed to streamline the process a lot. So there are a lot of very basic things, like maybe a master data management which is not happening properly in the backend. So because of that, the bot is failing, and then the people outside will feel that the bot is not able to do the work, but actually the problem is within the system. So this was one example which I gave. So it is very important to actually know the process, just judge the process if that is mundane, if that is repetitive, if that is rule based, and if that is streamlined. So if you have these four are the main parameters which you need to check the process on. If your process is falling in this criteria, then you can directly put a deploy bot. The person will come, he'll develop, and the bot will be running seamlessly. That is a given. But before we jump into that, it is very important to streamline the process.
Right.
So you are right. Yeah.
Absolutely. And also when I hear about low code and no code, it would be interesting to hear your take on it, because you come from a background where you have worked in IT, right? Do you feel that what organizations are selling, so an automation anywhere will say that anybody can learn it with minimal coding or with absolutely no coding? Now, I have my own take on it. I feel that a little bit of basic fundamental coding knowledge goes a long way. Because even here, like you said, it's rule based and the process and the flow has to be understood. So, do you think a person or an organization where there are no coders, they can also start utilizing RPA?
Yeah. So I think what I know of automation anywhere is they are trying to drive this RPA in organizations from the bottom down, not only from the top. Sorry, from the bottom up. So what they're doing, I know of a few companies in which they have given the bot to every employee, that we are giving you this license or the bot basically, and you develop your own bots. So in that way, it is good that you're giving the business basically the ownership, that you own bots rather than the bots being owned by a IT or a third party. So you will not feel so connected with it. So maybe to build that connect, they have done. So what I know of RPA and automation anywhere is it's quite user friendly. So you don't need not be a coder or have that kind of a background, which is actually good. But then again, there needs to be a good balance. So if you need actually have, what happens if you build a bot and if it is failing, if you have the technical bent of mind, you will be able to debug it better. So you will know that okay, this is the reason it's failing. So it's better if you have some kind of a, even if you don't have a background. So it will automatically come from that kind of thinking which you have, or the kind of approach you have while building bots.
Right.
So while it is important to endow businesses with that option that you have this bot with you, you own this bot, you build this bot, but it is also important to give them some kind of training which force them to think in the way of maybe a coder would. Not to that extent maybe, but they'll understand, okay, this is maybe this is the reason why my bot is failing, and that is how they will be able to optimize it better. So that is,
Right.
I think that there should be a balance. It should not be like a one-way street.
Right. No, I think that's an excellent and a very important point, because usually IT administrators would be handling all of these processes, right?
Yeah.
The moment you allow everybody to do it, it sounds very nice that you're empowering them, but that
Right.
also means that there will be more silos. Everybody has their own style of working, and if you're not
Right.
monitoring it, because one of the ways of automation anywhere or UiPath selling, their tools is to say that you don't need a lot of monitoring or IT support. But that also means that if you don't have IT support, how do you make sure that everything
Right.
is uniform? So I think that balance is super important. Okay.
Yeah.
Now circling back to the industry as a whole, um, is the industry known to be tech savvy? What changes have you seen in the last 3 years? And what changes do you expect in the next 3 years? So if we look at a 6-year timeline, let's say 3 years back and 3 years in front.
Okay. So honestly speaking, if you judge the industry by the tech savviness, you would always keep maybe a manufacturing or a power sector little below the ladder. So, but what happens in the last, and especially in my company, so there is a great impetus on technology. So there is always a great motivating factor of person actually working in a way which makes things better. So, and they are doing a lot of stuff with updated new technologies, trending technology. So that is something which is helping me in the current organization where they already have a push for the technologies. Regarding the industry, I have to say that they are improving because they have to, because there are a lot of concepts which are coming up in the power sector. Especially, you will know that the thrust on renewables in the current in our country as well as in the world, it's going quite high, right? So for that, there needs to be a lot of flow of renewable energy in the next maybe 5 to 6 years, and for that, to keep up with the pace of the renewables, this thing is coming up. So you need to have some kind of a digital intervention. Otherwise, by doing it with the normal way in which you were doing it maybe 10 years back, you'll not be able to meet the demand. So that is what the industry is trying to understand. They're realizing that, and many other companies are also trying to embrace this digital initiatives and digital intervention within their way of working. So while the concepts and all of the maybe a one world, one sun, like you basically have import power from a different continent to your country because just to meet the time difference and all. So if I am basically importing power to Egypt, who are a little behind us in terms of time zone because it's evening, it's morning and it's noon over here. So that we'll have high power here, so we'll just transfer it to that area. So these kind of concepts are coming up, undersea transmission cables. So there are a lot of things coming up, but for that to actually work in the very short duration in which it is planned, you need to have a good digital setup. So I think now they are slowly trying to they're understanding the capabilities and they're slowly adopting it. So user adoption is a problem. I'll be honest. So rather than actually getting the buy-in from management and to actually execute it, it's not such a big problem. It just happens. There are good competent people everywhere. So it is happening, but the user adoption is a problem. Seeing the how the sector is and how it has been, but that is where that is the most important crucial element of my work. So actually be a mediator between the development and the user team to make sure that all the issues are bridged and all of them are speaking the same language, which is a challenge because generally the people on the field don't understand that well, the technical part. So it is a challenge. So that's the biggest challenge which I face on my day-to-day work, but that's again is the most exciting part. How do you kind of bridge the gap and make sure everyone's on the same page?
Right.
So that is what I'm doing.
From a leadership perspective, if you look at a telecom company or a CPG or a retailer, it's very evident. You get a customer response to your product, and you take an action based on that. If I understand correctly, the industry is where a leadership support is required and a vision is required, not just on a 1 year, 2 year timeline, right? I mean, you'll be looking at 10 years down the line, and you have to keep that in mind, right? The
Yeah.
actions that you take in terms of data and otherwise, you can't just say that, okay, for the next 2 years, this is my vision. That vision really has to be longer than that.
Right, right. So, just like I said, the renewables, the sustainable development plans which the countries have, which is a hot topic now in the world, and rightly so. So, for that, they need to start the process from now, because the years gone by will basically just harm the planet later on.
Right.
So, it is very important to have that outlook right now. The sector is, it's not, they have started using it, and this is the right time. The field is investing in technologies which might give them the desired ROI maybe 3 to 4 years down the line, and they will be in track with their goals which they have, the optimistic goals which they have. So, so this is the right time actually in the industry, when we are seeing an advent of a lot of different kind of trending and amazing technologies which are coming up. So, I can safely say that the power sector right now is not what we generally think it to be, and it is slowly going through a big disruption. And leadership is quite cognizant of that fact, and they are having a lot of buy in all this, especially in our company.
All right. Okay, now jumping from RPA to data analytics, you and I have worked together on a number of things.
Right.
So I would really like to talk about Excel and Power BI. And the reason I want to talk about it is because BSchool students have, it's an absence of knowledge, right? Like we all, and I think the biggest problem is that we look at Excel as Excel, and we don't know what we don't know. So we don't even know what are we missing out on, whether it's using Visual Basic or Power Query or Power Pivot. And since none of us learn Excel systematically, the problem is it's all acquired knowledge, and you only learn it when you're working, with that peer group and you have that exposure. So, if you can share your journey with Excel and the transition that happened to Power BI, and what do you expect will happen in the next 1 or 2 years?
So, Havish, so being a BSchool student myself, so when I was in my BSchool, so I literally had no idea of how things work in a corporate setup. I was not too good at Excel as well. So, so this is something which happens. So initially, you don't have anything to benchmark yourself with. So you just have your peers, and that too, you will not be that in. You'll not be so much. You'll not feel that, okay, I need to do this. So it's more of your priorities will be different when you're in preschool. But I think it should be, you should have a kind of outlook towards the sector and what kind of work happens. Even though you will learn on the job, you cannot learn before you actually join. I get that, but it is important to get a good outlook. So as you said about Power Query, right? So I had no clue about Power Query. Even after joining the company, even 1 or 2 years later, I had no clue that Power Query has that much of a impact, and it has so much of potential to actually reduce so much of work a person actually does manually every day. So, so as you said, initially when I came in, I think you trained us in the initial stages during the induction. So I saw you doing a lot of amazing things with Power BI, Excel, as well as PowerPoint. So it was there when my interest kind of picked up, and I thought, hey, this is something which is important, like just out of personal interest. And then when I actually I understood the way of working in the organization, how the organization functions. I saw there were a lot of areas where if you just use this basic knowledge of Power Query or maybe a Power BI, a lot of your problems are getting solved. It's just because the people are so busy in their day-to-day work, and they are just used to how they work in a daily basis. So they don't have the time, or there is an inertia basically that I need to change my working, even if they know they want to change, but they don't have the they don't have the inputs or the way that, okay, how do I start or how do I change? So that is where I think self-learning becomes very important. That you should get an idea. Okay, this Power Query can do this, and if I learn this, I will be able to bring value to my organization in this way. So just to have this kind of high-level outlook, what it can do, and if I learn this, what impact will I make to my organization? So if you have this kind of vision, even a vague vision at start is enough, but then you will automatically be pushed towards these kind of concepts, and later on you will be able to use them to actually do good in the organization. So this is what I have learned, that initially in the B schools, if you just have a basic idea about this, that will be of great importance. Even later on, just to have that outlook is very important. So otherwise, everything happens on the job. So
Right.
even I have learned this, but you should have outlook.
Right. That's an excellent point about the fact that you need to have a basic idea. The problem with B school students is that they're very hyper competitive. But what
Yes.
that means is that they look at everything in a binary manner. They say that we either don't know it, or if we know it, we have to focus our complete energy on it. But that's not really possible, right? How many things will you learn? Now, you can't
Yeah.
start to learn every language and every software.
Right.
So I think what you said is very important. That's what I tell students as well. At least have an awareness, have an exposure to what is happening out there. You should be familiar with the terminologies. You should know which sectors are using what type of technology. And maybe you don't want to invest all your time and energy on it, right?
Right.
Like I remember when I started working on Power BI, I was very curious what is Tableau. And the reason I was curious is because I did not see myself ever needing to work on Tableau. None of my clients worked on it. But I did not like the fact that somebody might suddenly one day, stand up and say, why is Power BI better than Tableau? No, I can't say that I don't work on the other tool. So
Yeah.
just having that high level knowledge, I think, is great.
Right.
Because, and a lot of people underestimate the importance of that. Okay, so final question and the important one. What advice would you give to B-school students? I know you said that you can't learn a lot while you're still in college, and on-the-job training is something very different. But then if you had to take certain actions, in terms of data analytics, especially those students who are either entering data analytics or are in a profile like yours, which is a techno-commercial, which has an element of technology in it. What are the actionables that you would suggest to them?
Right. So one thing which I would like to say is we should just try to limit our inhibiting beliefs. Like there are some beliefs which you have, which I don't know, it might be embedded in you, maybe through your work or through your past experience, through your education, through your experiences. So I've personally, what used to happen with me is that initially when I worked in this coding and development for some time, or maybe 2 years pre MBA, so I had this limiting belief that this is something which I don't want to do. And what happens is if you have that limiting belief, you shield your mind from a lot of ideas which are very great. But just because you think that, no, I don't want to do this, you will just shield yourself and you will lose out on a lot of information. So what I would say, when you're going into an MBA or whether when you are in MBA, so you should just stop all your inhibiting beliefs. You should just try to assimilate as much as you can from everywhere. Like even if you think that, okay, I don't want to go to this sector, maybe suppose I don't want to go to marketing. I don't think I can do it, but still try to get as many concepts as you can through your peers, maybe through someone else, or just have a discussion with someone who is good at it. Just have discussion. Don't shy away from those discussions just because it's not your cup of tea. Just try to know everything. The later on you'll realize the more you know and the more you can absorb, so that will somehow help you, maybe in terms of your conditioning, or maybe in terms of the knowledge you have based on those discussions. It will help you. So coming back to my case, so I always had this belief that I never want to do this coding or anything related to coding again. So I want to be in core MBA concepts and I just want to do that. But then what happened, what was, because I, after MBA, when I got placed in this company which I'm currently working, so I saw it from a different angle. I started seeing the coding part from a different angle, from a business angle, that is the coding able to solve business problems. Then I started enjoying the thing better. So initially I just used to look at it from a very narrow lens. That was the reason maybe I just totally used to think that this is not what I want to do. But if you think if you keep your eyes open and you keep your outlook open, then you'll see it from a different perspective once you're an MBA and after MBA, once you join a different kind of a role, right? So there it will be much easier for you to understand why people do what they're doing and how it is helping the business. So that is where I started understanding why RP is required, how the code is working, why the code is not working, and the kind of because I had some kind of a background obviously helped me. So that's specific to my case. But what I would say to B school students who are currently going in, or just be open to everything. It's okay to have your likings. It's okay to follow what you want to do. That is completely fine. But don't block yourself from maybe something which is not your domain. You will always, once you join a company, you will always get narrowed to one domain or maybe two domains. So that will always happen in future. It's going to happen, but that doesn't mean you just don't think of anything else. So as you just said, so all kinds of, because data analytics is going to just change the way things are going to work in the future. So just keep your eye open, like what is happening in the world of data analytics, how data is actually helping companies in different sectors. So these kind of knowledge, I'm sure people do that. I have seen like all of them are very this thing, but it's better to just have complete open mind when you're going in to an MBA, especially for the people who are going in, I would like to say. And for the people who are already there, there's nothing, never too late. So you can always start, and you will be able to enjoy the entire journey better in this way. So this is one kind of a mistake which I made, and if I look back, this is something that I could have changed. So this would be my advice.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much, Soumyadeep, for joining us today.
Thanks, Avish. It was a pleasure. Thank you.